Let's talk quickly here about election 2012. I'm going to throw out some names. You can react to these. I'll just go run through them, and then I'll give you the floor here. Election 2012, we've already got Herman Cain in here, Ron Paul in here, Tim Pawlenty, Rick Santorum. Daniels is out. Christie's, has been saying he's not going to run, whatever. Scott Walker, people talk about him. People talk about maybe Rick Perry coming in. Palin obviously is the biggest name that hasn't yet got involved and stuff like that. Michelle Bachmann has been talking. And then Mitt Romney, it has just raised an enormous amount of money. Rush Limbaugh has talked about, with Mitch Daniel not running today, the insiders are upset. Let's talk about this tension. But first, I want to get your quick reaction to some of the names. Who do you like? What do you think about these folks? Who do you maybe not be so favored of? Also about the tension between the insiders versus the outsiders. And a lot of people, I just have to name names. Karl Rove. I like Karl Rove, but I just feel like he's too insider sometimes, and I wasn't happy with what he did to Christine O'Donnell. I haven't been happy with some of his comments on Sarah Palin. And there's now becoming this more visible tension between, talk radio and conservative activists versus the insiders with regards to 2012. So what do you think about all that, and who do you want to see come out here in 2012?
I'd like to see Sarah Palin run because I have researched her record and I know what it looks like. I know she's standing on a solid conservative record, and I think she would absolutely force those candidates to be true to who they are. And if they're not being true to who they are, she'd be the first one, I think, to call them out on it. So I'd love to see her run. I think she'd definitely be a force to be reckoned with. With respect to the debate in South Carolina, I thought Herman Cain was the big winner in that particular debate, because he has not only the executive experience that we've been talking about, but he has an air of authenticity to him. He's not typical Washington. He really does stand out as someone who wouldn't quite fit in with the rest of the machine, and I think that many people, myself included, find that to be a good thing. So I think he did very well there. He does have some foreign policy inconsistencies. I need him to be more specific. I need him when people ask him about Afghanistan and what his policy would be, even though he doesn't have all the facts, and that's true, I need him to give me a specific direction. I think the American people are going to demand that of him, and perhaps as he moves along, he'll be able to provide that. But he's been very strong on economic issues, and I'm curious to hear more from him. I think Michelle Bachmann will definitely be an interesting candidate if she chooses to run. I'd like to hear more of what she has to say. I'm not terribly excited about someone like Mitt Romney, for example, who not only has Romney care attached to his hip, but also has defended that repeatedly. It's not like he came out and said, you know what, this was a bad decision.
Right.
It was bad for my state. It has not been successful. He's doing quite the opposite. He's defending it in the name of federalism, and that's not something I can appreciate, particularly when doctor lines in Massachusetts are a disaster and it wasn't cost efficient. The main purpose of Romney Care was to bring down costs, as we recall, and that was not what happened. So I have a lot of issues with some of these insider establishment candidates who now are all of a sudden talking change, but their records don't reflect that. And I also, I think back to the 2010 election season, which, as we know, was so important and so powerful.
Yes.
So many of us were out there and involved. Where were some of these candidates? What were they doing?
Yeah.
I wrote about Palin, for example, who had endorsed 81 candidates and had an enormous success rate. Where were some of these other people? Why were they so silent? I'd like to ask them that as well. Why not contribute at that point? Is this something that just struck them all of a sudden now that they want to run for president? Or, those are the kind of things that I want people to look at. Is what is the pattern of behavior here? Is this someone who has been committed to conservatism, for a very long time? Is it someone whose record reflects that? Is this someone who, with the past election cycle, was right on the front lines doing what needed to be done? Who were they endorsing? Why were they endorsing those people? And that goes for commentators too. That goes for, yes, Karl Rove. I remember that whole Christine O'Donnell mess, as I refer to it. I did support her because I felt she was the only genuine conservative in the race.
Right.
And that goes for Gingrich too. May as well throw him in his bunch. And with that whole Dee Dee Scotta-Fava mess, sitting on a couch to Nancy Pelosi, these things will come, and his recent comments, frankly, with respect to Paul Ryan, which, despite what everyone's saying, really didn't sound like a slip of the tongue to me. That sounded, he's a very smart man. He's very articulate.
Yes.
That sounded like something that came from the heart at the time. So I'm not terribly convinced that that's not something that really rings true for him at the end of the day. I haven't spoken to him personally. Maybe I'd be, I'd change my mind if I did. But from where I'm standing, terribly convinced that that was something he didn't feel at that moment genuinely.
We're talking Jedediah Bila, author of the new book Outnumbered, Chronicles of a Manhattan Conservative.